and welcome to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. Today's card's going to be quite a simple design. I'm going to do it with using some Altenew layered stamps for the first card, but I'm also going to show you an example of doing it with some easier stamps and some pattern paper at the end for you that might like something a little simpler. I'm going to start with a card base that's got a piece of A4 card folded in half, and then it's trimmed the same width the other way, and I've also got a card panel the same size, so it's just under 6 inches. And I'm going to cut out a circle die out of the centre of that, and I'm using an inside outside die so that the stitching cuts on the inside and on the outside, because I'm only just going to be using the outside part today, and I'll save the circle that I'm cutting out for another project. So I'll run that through my Big Shot machine, and then I'll be able to put those aside and get on with my stamping. Today I'm going to be using 2 stamp sets for Altenew. One's the Garden Treasures, and I'm going to use the biggest flower out of that set, and I'm also using Beautiful Day stamp set, and then I'll use leaves from both sets as well. I'm going to be using my Misty today to do the stamping with the different layers. I find it's much easier than using an acrylic block. You get a bit of time to just play around and get each layer in just the right position before inking and then stamping, so I just find it so much easier. I'm going to be using Altenew mini ink pad sets today. One's the Cherry Blossom, Summer Afternoon, and then the other's Green Valley. So I'm going to be using Pink Diamond, pinkalcious, and Rubelite out of the pink set, Buttercream, Warm Sunshine, and Paper Bag out of the Summer Afternoon set, and I'm going to be using Firefly and Grass Field out of the green set. So I'll use my Versafine Onyx black ink to stamp the outline stamp of the largest flower out of the Beautiful Day set, and then I'll go ahead and use the 3 pinks and do the 3 layers for the rest of that flower, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the outline stamp and then the 3 colours of the yellow for the largest flower out of the Garden Treasures set. With the Altenew Crisp inks, you'll find that sometimes The inks look a little bit blotchy when you first stamp them, and they also look a lot more vibrant and brighter, but once the ink soaks into the paper a little bit, give it a few minutes and it starts mellowing out a little bit and looks a lot more even. The next thing I did was some leaf stamping. So I did 2 of the large, and I think I did about 3 or 4 of the smaller ones on some more scrap card. Each of those only have 2 layers, so I only used 2 greens for those. Then once I've done all those, I've fussy cut them out, and if you've got the die sets to go with it, you can certainly cut them out by dies. Once I've done all the fussy cutting, I again use my MISTI and I set up the card how I think I'm going to do the layout, just so that I can work out where I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I'm using Altenew's Happy Birthday, Birthday Greetings stamp set, and I'm going to just do the Happy Birthday towards the left hand side in the space that I've made there, and I'm just going to stamp it with Versafine Onyx black ink. I'm not going to heat emboss it this time, and then I can go ahead and do the stamping once I've taken everything away and left my card base just in the right position in the MISTI. You could stamp whatever sentiment you wanted. It doesn't necessarily have to be a birthday. That seems to be the type of card I mainly use. I see there's a little bit of a hairy or a little bit of extra lines just above the P and the Y on my sentiments. I must have had a bit of fluff on the stamp when I stamped it, so I try using the mono sand eraser and see whether I can sand it off. it improves it a little bit but doesn't get rid of it completely. So I've got a way of hiding that with some clear drops that I'll put on, stick it on to just hide that little boo-boo. The next thing I need to do is to cut out some craft foam to go on the back of my stitch circle window panel. So I'll draw around the center circle and then cut around that just slightly bigger, and I'll patch up the side because I haven't got quite a big enough piece. And I go to stick that onto the card but realise there's another step I need to do before I stick that on, so I'll just put that aside and go back to sorting out where the flower arrangement's going to be and sticking that down. What I'd forgotten to do was to stick the flowers and leaves where I want them behind the circle before I stick the craft foam on, because I want the whole thing to be raised up above where the sentiment is. So I'll just glue the very edges of the flowers and tuck them underneath the circle die cut, and then arrange where I want the leaves to go. And then I'll flip the whole thing over and I'll stick some scrap bits of craft foam onto the back of those just to hold them all in place and to make sure that the whole flower area is supported. And then I can put my craft foam onto the back and stick that onto my card base. Now you could use foam tape for that. I find that the bulk of the craft foam in behind the window just helps support the whole card panel, so I prefer that to little pieces of craft foam tape, but you just do whatever you've got. So once the card panel's all stuck down onto the card, I've arranged some sparkling clear drops to go in several places around the card, and especially the little bit of fluffiness on the sentiment just to cover that. And also I'll pick the drops up with my jewel picker and glue them down with just a little dab of glue, and that's that card finished. Now I'm going to show you a variation in this card just to show you that you can use all sorts of different stamps and have a really nice card. This one I've ended up using a pattern paper in behind the window, and it's from the Lemon Craft book called House of Roses, which is just a little 6x6 pack, and I've got one of the papers that's a pretty green with just a hint of music in behind, so I stuck that down on my card base and stamped the sentiment on top of that. And then I've used My Favourite Things stamp called Modern Blooms, and that's I've just stamped them, and they're just a block stamp that and then you do different layers on top with different coloured inks, and so I've ended up making an arrangement with those. So you can really use any flower stamps that you might have, and it will make a really lovely card. So just experiment and see what you've got and see what you can come up with. So here's some photos of the two cards, and I'll leave a couple of videos that you might be interested at the end. Why don't you think about giving me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you haven't, and hit the notification bell to get the next video when I load it. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.